All right, a special edition of the Luchador Podcast. Billy Liucci, David Nuño. Billy, before I intro our next guest, I had our interns working hard trying to book this guest. And, they were calling Netflix. They were doing left and right. And then you hear us talking about, dude, I got his number. Let's book him. So let's talk to Ryan Duffy, the director of Untold, Johnny Football on Netflix. So, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us, man.
It's my pleasure. Appreciate you guys.
Ryan, appreciate you. And I know what a busy days these last few have probably been for you in the next few, so I appreciate you taking a break. And by the way, we have not watched it yet, so that's where we're coming from with this interview. We've got the whole TexAgs staff watching it tonight. We're going to have a big pizza party and watch party, and they've been instructed to all also watch it on their individual Netflix streaming. We are supporting the cause here, but I'm really looking forward to it, Ryan. I've been looking forward to it since, before then, but since the minute we sat down and you and I talked for multiple hours that day, and I've wanted to know as little as possible, so this will all be fresh and new. But, man, the early returns have been pretty incredible on this end. What's it been like for you guys since last night?
Yeah, it has been incredible. And I think the fact that the excitement is so high, to your point before, most people have seen it. The film's out now. I think speaks to just the mystique still to this day of Johnny Football. It's the whole reason we wanted to do the story is we genuinely believe that there are only a handful of singular, super crossover, compelling athletes in any lifetime, right? And Johnny is one. There's a very smart guy who sits for an interview in this film. You'll see him later, who says that sports had never really seen anything like Johnny Manziel, someone who plays this way and lives this way. I believe his name is Billy Liucci. And I think that's totally true. I think Johnny had that crossover appeal, and I think people have been waiting for this doc.
Did you think so? The process of you guys, and you've done such a remarkable job with some of these other Untolds, and it was fascinating sitting down with you guys and hearing about everything. But were you guys surprised? Was this when you realized, hey, this is actually going to happen as someone on the creative side and someone that does this for a living, and were you like, oh my God, we're actually going to get to do this? Or did you think all along, ultimately this is the fit, I feel confident this is going to happen because it just needs to be this way?
Yeah, you're never confident till someone's in the interview chair, right? There's so many ways these things can go south, and they have, trust me.
Yeah.
They've gone south on me in every conceivable way. But I will say there's something, I did a doc on Manti Te'o also for the Untold series last year. So that was kind of my jumping off point for my interest in this. We were working through that 2012 college football season. It's such a special season. And I was looking through a bunch of the old archive of the Heisman, obviously Johnny's all over that stuff. And I started going, man, I wonder what that guy's up to. I wonder if this is about the time. And I will say there's something about kind of the 10-year mark, right?
Yeah.
Thereabouts in that 10, 12-year mark where guys are turning 30, the kind of professional playing career behind them. Events in college are kind of in that sweet spot where you still remember them super clearly, but they don't feel so recent that they're immediate, that they're painful, that you don't want to talk about them. It's just the right distance away from a series of events. And that's how we eventually got Manti to sit down and talk about something that he hadn't talked about in well over a decade. And kind of felt like Johnny was probably in right about that zone, and turns out he was, and it just all lined up perfectly.
Ryan, it's almost impossible not to have preconceived thoughts about Johnny based on what we've seen on social media and on TV. Did he live up to what you thought, or was he a little bit different?
It's a little bit different only in the sense that Johnny, so yes, you're right. It's impossible not to have preconceived notions. I watched the Johnny Football phenomenon as a fan. I was living up in the Northeast at the time, so I was pretty removed from it, but a huge college football fan and watched it all play out. And then watched everything that happened afterwards and, had my opinion colored by the national media narrative that, oh, hey, this is a kid who chose to hang out with Drake instead of learn a playbook. And that's kind of, simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that never really squared with that idea was like how the kid kept getting so many chances, right? Like it just seemed like everyone loved him no matter what. And everyone wanted to give him another chance. And he was still so widely liked, and that didn't fit with kind of what you would imagine from that stereotype, which is like someone who's arrogant, someone who's full of themselves, someone who is squandering whatever gifts they were given. And you meet Johnny, and within 30 seconds you're like, oh, I get it. I get every chance this kid has been given. I get every nice thing I've ever read or heard about this dude, because he is just one of the most down-to-earth, low-key guys I've ever met. Forget athletes, like just humans. Just a super regular dude, a super kind guy, really at his core, like loves people, wants everyone to be happy. And it just made everything so easy in terms of working with him, doing this doc, and how generous he was with his time and with introducing me to his whole family and network.
Was there a moment? I know you guys sat down with him for hours on multiple occasions. Was there any specific moment or revelation where you just went, oh man, I wasn't expecting that. This is going to be good? Or if not, was there a point in the creative process, Ryan, where you guys thought it was going to go one way, and once you were compiling everything, did you go, oh, okay, this kind of takes it in a different direction on how we kind of originally thought it would be?
Yeah, it was it was kind of a series of those moments, actually. It was like, it wasn't even any singular one, because there was a frequency and volume of that. Like Johnny just going like full detail on the whole autograph thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that was one moment where I was kind of like, okay, like I certainly had planned to ask about it, and he talked about it elsewhere. I'm not, we're not blowing the lid off something here, but sometimes people look at the global scale of Netflix and the sheer amount of people that can watch these things on that platform and go like, oh, man, do I really want to talk about this, whatever this may be? And Johnny just didn't seem to have that concern. I think the dude kind of has a singular operating procedure, and that is full open book. And that's obviously a documentarian's dream. And I will say the other thing too is like, you see it also, like people always want to present to you that they themselves are being honest, right? They sit down, they answer all your questions, even if they talk around some stuff. But generally speaking, they know that if they've agreed to do an interview, they kind of got to do the damn thing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the way people try and exert control is in the people around them. So they know that you're going to interview mom later that day, and they'll call mom and they'll say, hey, look, I don't really trying to avoid this thing. Can you not give much on this? Or they'll call the old agent. And, hey, remember this story? Maybe give them the PG-13 version of that, so you're controlling it behind the scenes. As soon as we sat down with Eric everyone, but Eric Burghardt, Johnny's NFL agent, we sat down with Eric, and Eric just started going team by team. Okay, Houston came to visit. Johnny did this. Cleveland came to visit. It was this party. And they were matching up with other stories that we had heard from other folks like yourself, where I was just like, oh, okay, Johnny's not trying to pull any strings behind the curtain here. Like this is full open kimono from everyone involved. And that's super fun.
My favorite is the Brown story. Did he say anything about that one? Like the team that drafted him, that one kills me.
It's in there.
So here, I'm thinking you bring me to something right there. So Johnny never called me, and we talk all the time. We were talking that weekend, and I know it was you or Jake. I think it was Jake, and you guys said, hey, can we do this? Can you come out to California? And then on a Sunday night, you said, hey, while we're here, we could just knock it out. And we did it here in studio. By the way, I tell everyone it was just really incredible how much, we got a lot of cameras in here, David. Like how much went into y'all's setup for just that one shot that I think when you guys were filming it, you didn't know if you'd use 4 seconds of me, no seconds, or a couple minutes. What all went into that whole documentary is where I have a real appreciation for what you guys did in order to produce and put this together. But he never said anything to me, and it just so happened that he left town right after the game that weekend, and I don't even know when we talked about, hey, you're in the documentary. I heard you're in. Like, it was literally a matter of probably weeks before it even came up. So to go along with what you said, like, he was just interested none in worrying about what anybody else said that was in that thing.
It's actually really, I'd be totally honest, like we've made a lot of these now, right? Like we've had 10, we did the Jake episode, which premiered this new season, that Jake Paul, that was last week. And we got a few more rolling out. So we got, about 15 of these things all told. Pretty much every single athlete at some point in the process starts to feel a little anxious and gives you a call and goes like, hey man, I know you're editing, but like any chance I could see a scene, or like, you send me some stills. You want to give me a little sneak preview of what's in there? And like, that's not the way this process works, but I don't ever begrudge anyone for asking. Right. Like if I've just like sat down and bared my soul for 3 straight days of long interviews and then introduced some stranger to all of my like closest family and friends, I'd be freaking the out.
Exactly.
Johnny may be the only dude that never, ever asked, never called, never said like, hey, where's it at? Like I'd update him proactively just to check in. I'd be like, hey man, things are coming along well. We interviewed so-and-so and, we got an air date now or whatever. And everything was just like, cool. Appreciate you, brother. And you're like, okay, we'll just keep it rolling then. But I will say, like, to his credit, I think you get nervous when you feel like you're trying to spin something up, or you're trying to, like we talked about before, orchestrate something behind the scenes or, whatever. I think if you go full open book and you're just fully honest, what do you got to worry about, right?
True. No doubt.
Ryan, how do you think this story plays out with NIL? Like if we could put NIL back there in 2012 and 2013, how different does it look in your mind?
And we asked a few people that, but we asked Kingsbury that in the film, and he tries to get his head around it. I think he lands on like infinity dollars or something. It's impossible to quantify, but I think that the salient point there that I don't know that he gets enough credit for is like, look, thank God the rules have changed. NIL's great. It's probably a stopgap. There's probably a better system around the corner, but better now than where we were. Great. I think Johnny is a huge part of that evolution. And it's not just him, certainly, and he wouldn't say that. And O'Bannon, obviously, and all sorts of figures who played a huge role in this old broken system going by the wayside. But I think Johnny, especially with the way the autograph thing played out concurrently, really exposed the hypocrisy of that system, right? In the sense that, the NCAA is capitalizing 6 ways to Sunday upon this Johnny football singular phenomenon. They know they've got a year, 2 years, most of this, and they're milking it. Meanwhile, the kid's trying to just make a couple bucks on the side and participate in some way with signing his name on some merch. And he's getting, made an example of on this other track. And I think it just really laid bare something that we all knew. We all knew this was hypocritical and broken and shitty. And I think Johnny just helped to really make it so clear that we couldn't turn away, right?
It's funny. I always reference O'Bannon because I say the NCAA has had, I don't know how many years that is, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, to fix it before the reckoning arrived. And in hindsight, you go, was Johnny the reckoning? Was that when it was just that was that and things were changing? O'Bannon, that deal was kind of their warning, and then came Johnny, and I think, was it a year or two later, Gurley got in trouble for some stuff, and then I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right. You're right on. Like Johnny, I think kind of blew the lid off of it, no question.
Let me throw in one more for you, because I came away having an opinion about Manti Te'o, and I changed it after watching the doc. Same thing with Jake Paul. Those of us who love Johnny, this isn't going to change our opinion of it. It'll probably strengthen it. But what do you think about those who have been so anti-Johnny on social or throughout the years? How do you think they will receive Johnny after this?
It's a great question. I'm genuinely fascinated to find out. I've been wrong on these things before. And I also acknowledge, right, that like you get a skewed perspective making these things, you know, like it's tough to stay objective when you're spending so much time with someone and you're understanding all the broader context that maybe wasn't visible to other folks. But I do feel pretty strongly that it's going to at least help some people who had that opinion that I referenced before, that one where it's like, oh, he's just an arrogant kid who chose to party instead of play football. To the extent that narrative is still out there, I think this knocks that down pretty well, right? In the sense that, like, it's a lot more complicated than that. And shit, did Johnny make some mistakes? Of course. And he is the first to tell you about them. But it's just, there are a lot of, I think what this doc hopefully does is just contextualize those mistakes within a broader context of, you know, a system that was misfiring in a few different ways, and a world that was maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit faster than it should have been for a kid who was 18 years old, you know?
Yeah, Ryan, I'll tell you what, this has been, again, we can't wait to watch it tonight. I know everybody at the office was waiting. They're probably sneakily watching it. I'm probably going to be the only one that hasn't seen it. But, you know, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, Johnny called and said, have you watched it yet? And I go, what do you mean have I watched it? Like, have you watched? Why would I have seen it? And he just, and then I guess, you know, it was a while before he even saw it. Some people in the media started texting me. I said, I'm not watching it. And I've just been, from talking to you guys and knowing how the interview went with you and I, which to me was one of the best sit downs I've had with anyone on radio. You know, it was, I told the guys here at work afterwards, that was tremendous. Like how deep we dove, how it was like we'd known each other for 10 years. So you're really obviously good at what you do. But everyone that's asked me in the interim, I'm like, I don't want to know anything. I want to see what this group puts together, because I could just tell it was going to be something pretty significant. And just watching not only the Untolds, but the, you know, so many sports documentaries in general, I can't wait. I feel like there's a different kind of buzz for this one. I feel like the timing for this is probably, like you said earlier, the decade play. Johnny's still moving the needle. It was kind of perfect right here before football season. Anyway, I can't wait for tonight. Thank you for including me in it, first of all. I mean, hopefully I helped bring something to it, but that was really cool to see the behind the scenes. And anyone that asked, it's cool now that I can go tell, like, hey, no, this is all that goes into that 1 hour and 10-minute video you see. You got to know not only Johnny, but I think me, Johnny's family, Uncle Nate, who I didn't even know was going to be in it until I saw this second round of previews, which I can't wait to see what he has to say too.
Well, Billy, we appreciate it, man. I'll tell you this, we left your interview after we filmed with you, God, almost a year ago at this point. And everyone was in the production van and was like, holy shit, that was great. And I was like, yeah, what did you expect? First off, the guy's a Texan. They're natural-born storytellers.
And a New Yorker.
Secondly, he's forgotten more about Aggie football than any of us will ever know. And third, he talks for a living. This is what people, like, you put a put a camera on a guy who talks for a living, and you're setting up for a pretty good interview, and we use a lot of it, man. It wouldn't have come together the way it did without your help. So we very much appreciate you, man. I can't wait to hear what you think about the film.
Well, the barbecue was great too afterwards, so that was good. And,
that too, for sure. I'll come back and see you for that one too.
Absolutely. You guys, we'll see y'all at Kyle. We talked about it. I said, I got to get you guys down here for a real game. You were here for the season opener. You were working. It rained. We'll get you for an SEC game. You know, a Boston guy, you got to come down here and get some real college football. I know that.
We're ready for it, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, Ryan, get back to it, man. Appreciate it, and best of luck, and enjoy your day, my man.
All right, you too, guys.